about a Minkah Fitzpatrick contract extension, and he made the point that after a very poor start to the season, first couple of weeks were a rough go for Minkah, he's turned it around. He's making plays on the ball now, as we saw this past weekend. He's making just about every tackle that can be made, as Brian Baldinger pointed out. It feels like he's had to become a de facto inside linebacker at times, which we know is not his specialty. So how does all of this affect what you'd be willing to do with him for a contract extension this offseason? Because what Brad said is he's going to get possibly the biggest contract for any safety in the league, and I still don't know if I'm ready to make that level of commitment.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the commitment's probably going to be if you want to keep him. There's a lot of moving parts with the Steelers, okay? There's what's going to happen with the quarterback situation and what you're going to have to pay there. You're going to have to figure out what's going on with Tuitt, right? I mean, is that a contract that's going to be voided? Is he coming back? Because that's a big number, right? If he comes
what's
back,
the cap hit like if he doesn't come back based on when you decide to make that decision?
What are you doing with the edges at corner, not necessarily with the back of the defense like the safety?
Right.
What's happening there? What's your commitment? You have to start to line out what your commitment is going to be at receiver.
Deontay Johnson, and then everything flows from there.
And what's going to happen there? The cap is going to grow. It's going to get bigger, so I can understand it. It's going to be where it's probably in your best interest because you can't figure anything out differently, and you don't want to run the risk of bringing someone in and him not being good. That the best business is probably, even if you feel it's an overpay, is overpaying for Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be hamstrung in that he's going to be able to name his own price because you don't want to run the risk of being caught in the back at safety, with somebody who can't play.
And I don't know what the tag number would be, but I imagine it would be just as much, almost as much as you anticipate, if not more maybe, than what you would give on a long-term extension. But that's, if you're looking to, he's not a guy that I would hold his feet to the fire and say, I got to see more from you. But I would say, well, listen, if you really want the big money deal, we might have to see a little more from you. And that tag is out there, and we might use it when the time comes. Or you could take this deal that maybe isn't quite the top safety deal in the league and gives us just a little bit more wiggle room.
I think he's probably going to try to want to be the top safety in the league. I think that that's how guys measure themselves. That's the pecking order. If you're the Steelers, I don't. You have people that are so vociferous, though, about – look at everything he does. He's incredible. He's so great. I don't want to say I'm not seeing it. I think he's been very good. But you've already allocated so much money to one guy on that defense. Do you want to allocate any like some to someone else?
Right. A couple of guys, really, when you got Hayward's contract.
Hayward. And actually to it. But he's going to – I
have no idea.
That's going to go away, I would think. Safeties typically, though, with the tag, it's not as prohibitive as – a lot of other positions, although I think people are starting to realize that position's value a little more highly. But they need – man, he was so good when he first came here, and it was really weird because there was a better defense in place, but it was almost like they told him, okay, just go out there and play. And since he's been here and he knows what everybody else is supposed to do, it's almost like it's taken away from his play.
Well,
he's not getting as much help.
I also think there's a significant part of this is, like I said, he's being called on to come up into the middle of the field and make a ton of tackles.
All right, well, here's
Bush
the thing. People say this, okay? So he played in Miami. He's playing here. Unless he plays for like the 85 Bears, where is he going to ideally be able to just do what he does? Or plays for the Ravens team that won the Super Bowl. Like, where is a guy like that? Everybody all the time doesn't fit exactly into what their role is, and that's only what they do. I'm not faulting Minkah Fitzpatrick in this, but you don't design a football defense and then it works like a video game every week. You know what I mean?
You can't sit back in center field constantly. Right. But I think the problem is he's been asked to come up and fit that role so much more than he should have to.
He absolutely has.
If you've got guys who can cover, then he can go and do other stuff. But if he has to cover up for everybody else, I think that's the – and then was it Balding?
There were times like even Polamalu on a great defense had to – there were injuries. Different things happened. He had to come up and do things out of the norm. Like, that's just that's starting to get a little bit grating because if you're a truly great player, that's what you do.
But was it?
You have to do things that are outside of just simply putting a round peg in a round hole.
I get what you're saying. I also think you can look at his PFF grades. He's a higher graded run defender than pass defender this year, and look at the holes that are being ripped open.
Front of him.
Right, exactly. I mean, he's in some cases the first guy to make contact with the running back, which is insane. He's your free safety. But that's how bad they've been against the run, especially in the middle.
Was it? I think it was Balding or was it Spielberg? Or one of those guys was talking about how that other teams just look wherever Minkah is and they go someplace else.
Yeah,
and it's almost kind of to that degree with Hayden when he's in there too. If he's on top of his game, which he was as briefly, he only played a third of the snaps last game, but he certainly made an impact. But maybe sometimes he can't make plays because other teams just make sure they don't give him a chance to.
Well, it's why I pay for a dominant front. And I try to change the game at the scrimmage line and kind of go from there. But you can't.
Which
you
they
did.
do. No, they did. Right,
you did,
exactly.
And the guy didn't. And the guy's not playing.
yeah. And then the other guy's hurt,
right,
even though they convinced him to come back.